I'm dressed up as a highlighter today because Bagpipe is pretty fucking orange. Anyway, here's the Gunlance. And friction's a little tight, but it's not too bad. It's kind of hard to get this thing to extend with inertia alone, but retracting it with inertia is not too bad. Hey, Hypergrip, hire me. Fuck. This thing's so massive. It's only like 10.5 pounds, but it's so bulky.
Hey guys, welcome to the studio. So Bagpipe's Gunlance is not a commission this time. This is a personal project, so this prop is for me. But of course, naturally, since I've created the 3D model, I might as well share it with a lot of you guys out there in the community who want to cosplay Bagpipe and want to make use of the work that I put into it. So first things first, for those who want to actually make this for themselves, this next portion is going to include the build guide. Pretty much, I'm just going to show you guys the 3D model, how it's oriented, and how it's going to be assembled. Assembly is relatively simple, definitely not as complex as Spectre the Unchained. Spectre the Unchained, her weapon is just absolutely crazy as far as assembly goes. Bagpipe's Gunlance, I would still consider an insane build. It's just bulky, large, has some basic movement components, but the assembly is a lot simpler. A lot of the 3D modeling side of things, it's a bit more complex as far as like getting all the tolerances just right, but otherwise it's not too difficult. So first I'm going to go ahead and turn everything invisible. Here is the stock, here is the shaft, here's the peg that goes between the stock and the shaft. This whole part of the Gunlance, it's not going to be where you're going to grab the Gunlance at all, so it's okay if connections are not as sturdy because it's not really going to be a stress point. Here's the handle. This is definitely going to be a stress point. This is pretty much where your hands are going to go, so this is where a lot of your grip is going to be. I highly recommend printing it in either PETG or a higher density. Here's connector 1. This is 3D printed because the alignment needs to be really good. If you're not able to print this part in PETG, then I would recommend printing it in PLA. If you don't have a massively long printer in like a diagonal direction, then it's okay if you make it a little bit shorter and then just make sure it's all glued up and then put in there. This, however, I would definitely recommend printing it in a much higher density, like 50% infill cubic or even a little bit higher. That way, as this whole back part of the rifle section is hanging off, it doesn't bend or anything. Here's the cylinder frame. As you can see, the cylinder frame slots into this section here with a dovetail joint. Tolerances are fairly tight, but it should be able to fit in there fairly well, and then you'd be able to use some epoxy resin to really seal it in there. I would definitely recommend printing the cylinder frame, at least the section that's going to have a lot of the stress on it, this part here, in a very high density infill. Here are the cylinders. I did design this so that the cylinders are able to spin freely. However, if you do that, then it would cause the majority of the stress to be put on the cylinder frame section here. If you don't care about spinning the cylinders, then I would just recommend adding some epoxy or super glue to the edges here, just lining up the whole thing. That way the entire framework of the lance section is able to be withstood using this whole chunky assembly right here, rather than just this little thin section here. Here is the shielding. This shielding is very chunky. You're going to need a very large printer for this. It's pretty much required. A lot of the pieces are very large, and because there's a lot of stress involved with such a large prop being very long, being very bulky, it's unfortunate that you're going to need at least a mid-sized 3D printer, something that has a 300 by 300 millimeter square bed is the absolute minimum. These things, they're going to be around the edges in that case, but then your print quality will probably hurt a little bit if your printer is unable to print really towards the edges. Some of these tolerances I have set so that they're pretty lenient. For example, the shielding and the handle, I printed it with a 0.6mm nozzle in PETG, and so these tolerances are able to accommodate that. And as you can see, the shielding slots in through here. I'll be able to show you that during some of the clips of me putting it together. Here's the spin handle. This is a little small piece just in case you want to actually make it spinnable. I'll probably make some adjustments in the future so that I will have like an aluminum rod going down the bottom here. It'll be hidden by the shielding, and then the aluminum rod will go forward and then connect to here. That way you're able to have the cylinders free spinning, and then it'll be this part here of the cylinder frame as well as the aluminum rod or wooden dowel, whatever you use, will be able to brace the whole lance tip assembly with the rest of the framework. In here there is a rod coupler. This is also for when you want to have the cylinders spinning freely. Tolerances are fairly tight. I'll probably make some adjustments. This rod here is just a representation of the wooden dowel you'll be using. This alu rod right here is just a representation of the aluminum rod you will be purchasing. The length of the aluminum rod that you will need is exactly 800mm, so 80cm long and 8mm diameter. This right here is just a simple connector to interface with the cylinder frame and Lance 1. And as you can see, Lance 1 is an absolutely massive piece. Once again, you're going to need a very large 3D printer for, and one that is relatively tall as well. This Lance 1, I printed it in PETG with 0.6mm nozzle. Here's Lance 2. Something to note with Lance 2 is that this rod here, that is actually a part of the 3D printed piece. It's going to need to be 3D printed in a fairly high density, as well as some of the space around the base. That way that you minimize the risk of it snapping. Even then, during the assembly phase, I would recommend adding a little bit of epoxy just to the edge here. That way it can strengthen it further. Here's the Lance 2 exhaust. We're working with a different frame now, a different frame of reference. So this Lance 2 exhaust piece is going to be riding along this aluminum rod and this part of the Lance 2 piece that will pretty much be operating as a rail guide for it. Here is Lance 3. This Lance 3 piece will be attached to the Lance 2 exhaust piece. And so the Lance 2 exhaust and Lance 3 pieces will be connected together and be able to slide forward as you thrust it forward or as you move it forward. Here's Lance 4 and here's Lance 5. Now, one thing to note when you're assembling this, and this is very important, is that the aluminum rod right here, it ends into Lance 4. And with the aluminum rod, you will be making use of some flange couplers. Specifically, you're making use of these flange couplers right here. Everything is modeled to accommodate this particular size, and you will pretty much be placing the flange couplers on the very ends of the aluminum rod, both ends, because as I show you right here, this space right here on Lance 1 is pretty much going to be where you place the flange coupler, and then you're going to be attaching it to the aluminum rod and then fitting it in. And then you can add like a bunch of glue or epoxy just to make sure that it's fitted in there. But as you can see and observe based on its orientation, it will be pretty much placed snugly right in there. And then the other flange coupler on the other side will act as a stopper. That way, when you thrust the lance forward or when you move the lance tip forward, you have a stopping point that is preordained sort of. Or if you get the tolerances just right and it's very smooth, then you thrust it forward and then your lance tip doesn't go flying off and then snapping or breaking or whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Assembly is relatively simple, relatively straightforward. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you some clips from when I was putting it together and when I was painting it. Okay, so I just came back from work and this piece right here, finished 3D printing. It's a fairly large piece. This is like printed at a decently high infill, so it's pretty stiff and dense. So time to just do a test fit. I'm really hoping this fits, because otherwise I'll have to print this again. See, it always helps to like when you're 3D modeling to 3D print your fitted pieces. But yeah, that's pretty nice. It's very strong, very stiff. So hopefully this will be able to hold up the rest of the lance. But yeah, not bad. All right, time to test fit the handle / shielding with this piece too. As you can see, I have, oh shit. As you can see, I have these pegs on the side and then these notches on a specific side of this. And it has to be assembled ahead of time. I gave it quite a bit of leeway, quite a bit of tolerance, because I was just so afraid of it not. Oh! Check that shit out. Oh my god, it's perfect. Oh, it's perfect. I just need to add either super glue or epoxy. Oh my god. Hold on, hold on, bro. Oh, I'm cooking right now. Hold on, bro. All right, I didn't add the cylinders on the middle, but shit, check that out. Oh god, I hope this dense but small piece right here is able to hold up the rest of the lance, because this is stiff, but the rest of the lance is gonna add a lot of weight. Otherwise, I might end up having to perma glue the cylinders. You know, because I'd like to have the cylinders be able to rotate on the inside, but if it rotates, then it means it's just free there. It'll apply some pressure here, but I want to be able to like fucking jut this thing out and move it around like crazy. But that would add just more stress to this part right here. But yeah, not bad, not bad. Check it out. Oh wait, oh shit. Well, I need to glue that part in. But yeah, shit, bro. Now at this point you can use whatever leftover epoxy that's curing as we speak to attach the remaining lance tip to the rest of the lance tip, as long as you put your flange coupler in right now, because the moment you put this lance tip on and then it's cured and it's all cured, then you're not going to get it out and you won't be able to finish the assembly and you'll have to print all 4 of these pieces again.